Today, I am here with Derek Sivers. He's now in England, and he was open for invitation for podcasts, and he accepted my invitation, which was just amazing. Welcome, Derek.
Thanks, Erno. Well, I checked out your site, and even though it was in Dutch, and I just could tell what you were doing, and I like what you're doing. So,
because
I'm happy to be here.
The part was, I have to mention, because Wouter Rickmans, he was the guy that mentioned this to you. I got your emails, but somehow he read yours right away, and he said, "Oh, Derek is inviting people for the podcast. Maybe you want to do this, and I think you really should." And so I did. And but you mentioned in that post saying if you have a reasonable audience, and I was like, so what is a reasonable audience? But I said, well, what the heck? Let's try it anyway.
You have a reasonable audience. I was just using that to discourage people that were like, "Hey, man, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. Can you come on my first show?"
Yeah. I think it was a good barrier.
Thank you.
And the thing is that people always, not always, some people that come on the show or want to come on the show, they ask me, so how big is your audience? And I say, well, I really don't care. I don't follow the numbers. I don't follow the number of downloads a bit sometimes, but more when people ask me about it after the show, they say, so how many downloads did my show get? So this money, I don't mind how many people subscribe. The thing I like is just having a great conversation and try to learn something from the person that I'm interviewing.
Yeah.
And when I share it and just one person can learn from this conversation, I'm happy. That's my philosophy in podcasting.
Yeah. Same with my site. I used to just by default, most web servers keep a server log showing how many views each page had. So for years I just had them on, but I realized, years have gone by and I never look at those logs. I'm going to turn them off now. So I just went into my server settings and just turned off all logging. I'm like, I actually just don't care how many people are seeing my site.
That's funny that you mentioned, because it's one of my questions. How do you care about the statistics of your website? But just right away you answered it without me asking the question.
You're going to ask that? Oh wow!
I was, because it was a part I was that I'm still in. I have this with my podcast. I'm really happy with it, but with my blog, my website, I'm still anxious to let go of statistics.
Do you know why?
I think maybe when I have something to sell on my website as well, and so whenever people visit the page that I'm selling my services, you want to see why people are buying or are not buying, or entering the form or not entering the form. What's going on that you can learn, improve that page. That's the idea. But then again, I think
that's actually a really good reason.
It is okay.
Well, I think that's because what you're talking about could be ongoing usability testing, right? Like if you're seeing, am I losing people at this step? Are people abandoning this step? So maybe this step of the process is too hard. Or I've heard that there are things where you can actually see like everywhere their mouse is hovering on the screen. So you can kind of see the process of where they clicked, and you could use that. So yeah, you could see that's in their best interest for you to continue to improve the usability. So I don't think that's a bad thing.
But I can also explain why I'm in doubt, because I think it takes a long time and quite a number of visitors to really make conclusions of what's going on. And I think a lot fast when you just invite like 4, 5, 6 people and just have them in a call and go with them through the page and find out where they are stopping and just ask them questions. So why do you think that? Why do you do that? And why? What do you think of this point? So that then you have feedback right away and can make changes right away. I think it's a lot easier to do than just wait for all the statistics come in and see where people click and then maybe change that a bit, make the green button red and see what's happening. All this automation is like endless.
And it's not free. Even if you are not paying for it, it can often download, a whole megabyte of JavaScript to every single person that's visiting your site, which then slows down your site. And if you're not really using it, that's a good argument in favor of disabling it. Because I think of the comparison of people who order something online, like say you order a little USB stick, and then a big package full of styrofoam arrives, and you think, why did you give me all that? I didn't need all of that. I just wanted this little USB stick. And I think of that with websites. Usually people are coming to your site to get a few paragraphs of text you wrote. That's all they want. They don't need megabytes of JavaScript and CSS and all of these images and all these navigations and your social media icons that are loading from 6 different sources. It slows down the site so much, it feels like the unnecessary, inconsiderate stuff that's been given to them that they didn't want.
That's the same that to prepare this podcast, I've listened to a number of podcasts that's on your website right now, Sivers.org/I. And it's the same way that you think about writing a blog post or an article, how you want to write, maybe also even your books, so that you really cut to the essence of it and cut out all the fluff.
Yeah, that's, I'm not sure why I enjoy that so much. It's 2 separate things. When I'm making my website, I do that all by hand. I don't use WordPress or any other kind of site generating software. So every line of HTML that's on my site, I typed it out myself. So I would never add a line of HTML that didn't need to be there. I wouldn't add a single tag, a single div or span that didn't need to be there. I typed them all myself. So, and I like being a minimalist with that for the reason that it makes my site simple and fast. And I didn't get broadband for a long time. Like my friends had broadband, but I was still on a dial-up modem for a long time. And so I felt the pain of big websites that just assumed everybody was on a fast connection. So I still remember that. So I like, I respect the wire, the wire that we're using to deliver things from me to you. I try to use that wire the least I can. But for writing, this might be interesting to your audience. When I was running CDBaby, I would occasionally have things that I needed to email out to my musician clients. So CDBaby was a music distribution service where I had about 175,000 musicians whose music I was distributing. And every now and then, every 2 or 3 months, I'd have something that I needed to tell them all. Like, there's a new service. If you log into your account, you can now get your music onto Apple iTunes or something like that. Like something that was really important for them to know. And I found out the hard way that if I'm not super succinct and incredibly direct in that email communication, then thousands of them are going to reply back saying something like, cool, how do I do it? But the email that they're replying to has the instructions on how to do it right there. Or they might say, yeah, sign me up. But when you have 175,000 people you're contacting and you're not using a no reply at thing, it's like I send out 175,000 emails, I might get 50,000 replies. And I don't want to. I want them to understand my initial email as clearly as possible. So I found that if I was at all unclear, I would get 5,000 people replying, asking me for more information on something I had just told them. So that would take, I don't know, 5,000 emails, however long that would take, like just tens or 20s or 30s of hours to reply to those people. And I found that if the email was too long, even if I was as clear as could be, but I put the thing that they needed to know in the 8th sentence instead of the 3rd sentence, then I would still get maybe 2,000 email replies saying, cool, how do I do it? I'd say, it's right there. Look at the email you just replied to. It's in the 8th sentence. And they think, okay, it's my fault, not their fault. I need it to be more clear. So through all that pain of all those years and thousands of emails answered, I felt the pain of being unclear. And I think that was really important. Sometimes people who don't email their clients so much and only use their website, they don't feel the pain from being unclear. They just get silence. And they think, I didn't get the response I was hoping for. But when you're doing it by email, you hear what's on people's minds. So point is, I think the reason I write so succinctly is because I want people to understand it. And I figure that every unnecessary sentence reduces the chance that they'll understand what I'm saying.
I can understand. So when you make when you send out the email to like 10,000 people and you get like 500 replies, then you go like, oh, this is the next time I should do this differently. So you change and you adapt. But you could also maybe just send it first to 100 people and see how they respond and change accordingly before you send out to the complete list. Is that something you did as well?
That would be smart, but I did not. I was usually eager to announce the thing that I wanted to announce. In hindsight, you're right. I should have sent it to 100 people to see what happens, and then the rest afterwards. But I didn't.
The fun thing, I know the eagerness about when you have something to say, and you just, because I do this. I do this all the time. I have a great idea. I read a book or something, so I write a blog post about it, and then I can't wait to hit publish, because I have to get out in the world, even if it's mistakes or typing errors or whatever. But the way I read your posts is that you're very considerate of a line that's in there. So it's not, you're eager to share, but also at the same time you have the patience to really think it over again and again.
For something I'm writing that's going to go on my site, that's going to be out there forever, I go through it a lot. I might have something I really, really want to say, and I'll spend hours writing and saying it, and then the next day I'll go back and spend hours editing it, and even then I'll leave it for a week, and I'll come back to it a week later to see if, now that some time has passed and I'm a little bit older and wiser, even if only by a week, do I still agree with what I said last week? Or is it a mess now that it's been out of my head and now I'm putting it back into my head? Is it really clear? And I'll often do this sometimes for months. I'll edit things for months before I finally release them to the world.
Amazing. And so the thing is, what I like about it is because you're very intentional about what you do, and at the same time you tell about these things, that how they go, and sounds a lot of work. Like just you send out an email and you got like 5,000 replies, and you spend a week with all the people in the office just getting back to all those people. And the same thing is, you announced you want to be on podcast shows, and then you get all these emails and you're replying to 6,000 emails, I believe, or something like that. That's just, and then go like, oh my God. So you spend like weeks answering all these emails. Just, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a lot of what I do. I enjoy it. It's worth it. It's not the most fun thing I could be doing with my time, but it's also not the worst. Most people are pretty considerate, and I find it usually pretty interesting. I think it's really cool hearing from people, especially people that are around the world, especially that are not from where I'm from. So I find it really interesting to get an email from a guy in Kazakhstan that is into forestation, or somebody from India who's running his dad's construction business and tells me about it. I think these things are really interesting and fun. So I enjoy my email inbox for meeting people like that. I also enjoy the challenge when people ask me questions. Somebody say, well, how do I know when it's the right time to quit my job or something? And I'll think, when is it the right time? Like, I enjoy being prompted with questions like that, because then I use them later in my writing too. But also, to be fair, in the moments that are not so interesting, I've crafted a whole series of macros on my keyboard. So, the 26 letters of the alphabet, I have them mapped to my 26 most common sentences. So when you hear that I'm answering 6,000 emails, I get through most of them in 5 or 10 seconds each. So kind of quickly scan the screen. Okay, and like Alt T, Alt Q, Alt S, go. Next one, Alt O, Alt P, Alt L, go. Next one, okay, Alt X, Alt C, Alt E, go. And that's how I answer most of my email. But then I'll get stopped with one that is a really fanciful email from somebody in Western Australia telling me a really interesting story, and I'll stop and take a drink of my tea and read it and enjoy it.
Right. I have never sent out the questions on or the topics that we talk about, because like now they happen in our conversation. But for you, I had to do this so that you had enough time to prepare. And despite all that, we will just go from back and forth anyway. But let's talk about some of the points that were on the list, because they were really interesting for me to learn from you. So you have a diary.
Mm-hmm. Diary.
Sorry. Dairy is something else.
No, I'm not milking any cows.
No, that's
I do write my thoughts.
Diary. So you write down your thoughts on a daily basis. But if I have it understood correctly, you don't have one, you have multiple, and you have all these versions on topics, and you write on them, all of them, on various times. How do you trigger yourself to write on a specific topic?
It's usually working out something that's in my head that I feel it's a problem I'm working through. If I'm confused by something, if I'm feeling stuck. See, for your audience, I think this might be useful because I did it a lot with my business. Many times if I felt that I was pursuing something that wasn't going the way I wanted it, or confused with some situation with an employee, I'd very often have to stop and go back to the basics in my private thoughts and kind of build up a foundation again from the beginning to remind myself or get a new perspective on what's going on here. So say if it was a problem with a person, I'd stop and go back, maybe look at all of my communication history with this person. Sometimes something they told me long ago about their beliefs that maybe they haven't mentioned in a year or two, but this is still who they are. It's really interesting sometimes to look at the very first email or 2 or 3 you have with somebody, and they're telling you about themselves. And sometimes those things haven't come up for a year, but now let's return to it. Like, they really told me that their family is really important to them, and being close to the family is the most important thing. And now they're acting in a way that seems strange to me. But if I go back to that thing, now I realize it's not strange. And sometimes, say if I'm developing a service or a product or something and it's not going the way I wanted, or I can't make it happen the way I wanted, I'll go back to scratch and ask myself, so why did I feel this was important to make? Who was this really for? What problem did it really solve? And I know some of these sound really basic, but it can be good to have some private time in a diary that's only for you. You don't have to justify these thoughts to anybody else. You can be ridiculously honest, ridiculously selfish, whatever it may be. This is just you talking to you. Nobody's ever going to see it. It can really help you remind you why you're doing what you're doing, or help you see what you might be doing wrong and how it could be done better. Sorry, I don't know if that's too vague or not.
No.
To me, it's just one of the most important things I ever did, and I'm thinking of it constantly. And sorry, I'll say one last thing is that it's not always for just solving problems, but sometimes you just have a little seed of an idea that pops into your head, and you need to give yourself time to develop that. And yes, you could do it over beers with friends, but maybe that should come third. Maybe the second thing is to spend more private time with it just in writing and ask yourself some questions about this brand new idea you had and explore it more yourself before you put it out into the open.
Mm-hmm. And then the writing makes the difference instead of not just thinking about it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, huge difference. You can lay on the couch and think, but it's all going to disappear and it's going to be a jumble and your mind is going to wander. If you do it in writing, it slows you down a little bit and it makes you see things that you just wrote. And then you can detach from them a little bit. Why is it important that I'm living here? I'm living here because I want my kid to have a good education. And then you see that you just wrote that sentence and you think, that kind of sounds like bullshit. Is this the only place my kid could get a good education? No. Sometimes you need to see something in front of your eyes to get a little distance and perspective on it. And also, I think that historically, to go back, so some people like writing in paper journals. I really like plain text files because I like that they're archived forever and easy. And in a snap, I can search my diary for every use of the word discipline or nature or whatever, somebody's name. I can search my diaries in 1 second and see, going back all the way to the beginning, 20 years ago, every time I've mentioned that person or that word, I can see it in a flash and sometimes realize that a problem I'm having now is something I wrestled with 8 years ago and I forgot about that. But wow, let's look at what I wrote 8 years ago. Oh my God. Either, oh my God, nothing's changed. It's the exact same problem. Or, oh my God, wow, I've made a lot of progress and I didn't realize. I can look back at what I wrote 8 years ago and it sounds so naive now. Okay, so what have I learned since then? God, it's so much more useful than just, sitting with your feet up and just thinking.
And that clarified also another question that I had was about the text files that you just put it in digital, because I write on paper. I have something like this, and I just write on paper, right? So, but that's a really good point that I cannot search these. Actually, oftentimes I can't even read my own handwriting anymore. So, and I'm not kidding. It's really, I go back and go, what did I write there? I don't know anymore. So, I think that it is a great idea, and it works for you. But also the part that you mentioned is that you can search in time how often you write about this topic or that person, and you can identify something that is coming back as a regular thing for me, as an issue that maybe if I'm talking about so often, I could maybe do something about it or change my way of doing things, right? So I like that idea. I read about it. But now you bring on these points. I go, well, that's a really good point that I can do on my journals.
Well, you might, because a lot of people, and maybe you too, find it much more personal and useful to sit down with a pen in hand. There are some things. So a friend of mine, one of my best friends, is like that too. Like, she journals a lot, but only likes handwriting. But she knows the benefit of having this permanent archive, and she's kind of nomadic too, and doesn't like having to bring around a suitcase full of paper journals wherever she moves. So yeah, she's found some, they're making these new developments in these I don't want to say e-ink, but these things where you can actually grab a pen and handwrite.
Yeah.
And it learns your hand it into text. On the other hand, I haven't seen your handwriting. Maybe it's hopeless.
No, I use that in my coaching sessions with my clients. I just handwrite in the document, and it just it translated to text. But it doesn't work all the time. So then you make corrections in the meantime. So then sometimes you are more busy with rewriting and writing stuff than listening to what the person is saying. And so that makes it I'm getting used to it, but it's a mix of typing and writing at the same time. I think it's just laziness for me, just doing the journal.
Well, before we change the subject, I had this wonderful idea 5 years ago. I did a long hike in New Zealand, like a 6-day long hike, where I was just completely offline. It was a part of New Zealand with no cell phone reception anyway, so they tell you might as well just leave your phones here at the camp. They won't work for the next 5 or 6 days. So just walked in the forest alongside a river and up into mountains and back down for 5 days. And oh man, it was so nice. But I had lots of ideas in my head. And I thought, well, this is just a wonderful way to live, to just be walking through the forest by the river. Why are we sitting at desks when we could be walking through forests by rivers? And I think, well, it's because of typing. Like we have to kind of be stationary so that we can type into our devices. I think, man, can you imagine if voice recognition gets good enough that I really could just be walking through the forest, listening to emails, replying to emails by voice, and having it turned into text, and even perhaps like writing a book just with my voice. Do you think about what tools you'd need for editing? You know, you just have to be able to say things like, you know, record, blah, 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 speak your thoughts, da, 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 stop, replay, remove sentence beginning with this word. So I think that there's a software called Dragon Speaking Naturally that I saw does something. But man, if that advances further, that could be amazing. It would be like, I imagine it would be like learning a whole new way of doing things, right? Like somebody learning to swim for the first time, or something that feels really unnatural to us. It would take quite a while to adapt. But could you imagine if the way that we all write right now could be adapted to a purely speaking, listening method, and then we'd be freed up to just do all the productive things we do in nature?
But I also because I listened to you telling this before, and I love the idea.
I did?
Right? Yeah, you did.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, you told it.
I didn't know I'd ever talked about this publicly.
That's okay.
Wow.
The thing is, the thing is, I thought about that part because I also started walking a lot before, but now I run. So I'm more a runner than a walker now. But I see you walking through the forest, right, for 5-6 days, and there's nothing else than you walking in the forest, enjoying nature, no external things that distract you, that take your thoughts away. No, you're just in the walking process, in the nature process, and then you combine it again with work, and then so this will just damage the whole experience. I do that when I'm running, right? So for me, I thought about the similar days. I run, and when I run alone, it's a great moment to let my thoughts go and find back creativity and think about others. There's a lot of time when I run when I don't think about anything, and then in the end, new thoughts come. But when I would use this run to listen to an audiobook, or to start writing a book by talking about it, I would lose that moment where it's just me and the running. And I would feel the same way about walking. How do you see that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Have you noticed that different activities let your brain be more or less open? Like when I walk, I have lots of thoughts and my mind wanders. But when I get on my bicycle, I have no thoughts. I could cycle for 4 hours and come home and not have had a single interesting thought in 4 hours. But if I walk for 4 hours, my brain is, full when I come home. And it's funny how those two things can be so different. So I think running, I don't remember where running would stand for me. I do a lot of walking and cycling these days. I don't do a lot of running, but yeah. Sorry, to answer your question though, the idea in the forest was thinking if I were to make this my way of life, if I were to actually live here and maybe not just walk for this 6 days once a year, but what if I were to actually walk around like 8 hours a day and integrate it into my life instead of needing to make it time out? It was just a kind of fanciful idea of like how if this could be completely integrated into life. I think I heard that the old Greek philosophers used to do all of their philosophizing and Socratic question asking while walking around Athens and up and down the hills, and they would do all of this thinking while walking. So the idea was kind of like that. Like, how would I do my best thinking while walking, but also save it and record it and maybe even write my book while walking? It's a fun idea.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then you maybe could just have just walking time and then walk and writing time, right? You could just
right. Yeah, leave my device at home.
Yeah. And I think the jump to the old Greek philosophers, the Stoicism, that's something that I also I would say try to follow. That doesn't sound fair. I really like the idea of that. You see the world as it is, and all the things that are happening are not happening to you or at you. It is just the one thing that you control are the way that you think about it, the way you respond to it. And so that also means you don't have to be too exciting about something that's exciting, and you don't have to be too sad about something that's really sad, because the reaction that you have is what's out and how you go. I just read this article yesterday about a woman that was in the camps, because it's a Liberation Day now in the Netherlands tomorrow. So there's a lot of stuff going on about the war right now. So there was an article about a lady that was the ballerina of Bergen-Belsen, I believe, or one of the camps at least. And she's now 90, and she just 2 years ago she wrote a book about the experience. She didn't write about it before. Now she wrote a book when she was like was 88 or something. And I think it's a similar thing that she was referring to, the book of Viktor Frankl, right? It's all about that you can live in a moment now and let tomorrow be tomorrow. So yes, I think that the whole Stoicism has to do with the walking. So I think walking is a really important part of life if you want to be creative, want to write, want to think better. There's no question there, though.
Because of the reflection time, the time to stop and think of what you're doing, to get away from what you're doing and look at it from another perspective. Is that what you mean?
I'm not sure. I think it has to do a lot with the rhythm, with the actual rhythm of walking, and with the being outside, right? Sitting at your desk in a static way, but just walking gets your energy flowing, and that gives a different energy in your brain. That's, I am not an expert on this, but this was what I'm thinking.
I like that. It's funny, this one here, I'll tell you, you're the first to hear this morning's thought. I went on a long 2-hour walk this morning through this big field here in Oxford full of cows, but also at the edge of it has a forest. And in this forest, there's the outside furthest track that I usually take, but I started my walk an hour later than usual, so there were more runners than usual that I was trying to avoid. So I ended up taking a kind of cross path that I'd never taken before that kind of cut through the middle of the woods, which got me thinking on the subject of exploring and meandering. Do you know that word, meandering?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little creek kind of meanders. And I was thinking how that is the opposite of leadership. That if you're being a leader and you want people to follow you, you have to show this sense of direction. Like, I know where I'm going. We're going here. Whereas if you're just exploring and changing your mind constantly, and well, I went here, but I feel like going this way. Or, hey, what's over there? I'm going to stop it. Oh, interesting. Look at this bumblebee. I'm going to stop and watch it for a while. Then I was thinking how that's metaphorically not a good thing for leadership. That changing your mind often and exploring is great for personal growth and great for learning and great for a lot of things, but not great for leadership. So I was thinking about how when people ask me if I've always been this way with all of this journaling and questioning and trying to look at things from a different point of view, I realized it didn't really start until I sold my company. After I sold my company, then I started exploring a lot. And I think it felt like a relief to not be a leader, that I have nobody depending on me now. I can just completely change my mind at any time, start things, and just stop them one day if I feel like stopping them. It's really nice to have nobody depending on that. I was thinking, yeah, because I'm being the opposite of a leader right now. It's really nice. Anyway, that was the walking thought this morning.
Yeah. I think it cuts right into the topic that I'm working on right now. The thinking process, not the topic. The thinking process I'm working right now, and it is what I do is business coaching with entrepreneurs. Like we have like a small company, like 5 to 25 people, and I love doing it. I just love doing it. So, but also at the same time, I love learning, exploring, reading, writing about the things that I'm. So when you read a lot and you talk to a lot of people on the podcast and you interview and you learn and you write about that again, you get all these thoughts, the meandering. So at the same time, people look in their business for some kind of direction, kind of leadership. So somebody is saying to me, I think that you should just cut down the topics and just not go all over the place, because people, it's very difficult to follow you. And I go like, yeah, that's maybe could be the point. And then I read your book and I go like, oh, but it's also just really important. And I think it's one of the most satisfying thing to do as a human being is to learn to be able to improve yourself. Why not share that, right? So that's
right.
That's a balance that goes up and down with me all the time. Do I do something new? Do I stick to the old one? More people will then follow that. Do I do something new or stick to? So it's an endless train thought that's going on.
What about the idea of disconnecting the project or the company from ourselves? I feel like that's advice that's given often is, your company is not your life. This project is not you. When it comes to personal growth and leadership, that could be an interesting comparison then, to say that leadership of a project needs to be somewhat unchanging, because it's just a project. And if you personally are exploring and go through personal growth, well, that's great. Well, disconnect that from this project. This project needs to go straight ahead. Your personal growth can go meandering all over the place, but separate that from the project itself or from the company. My employees used to get so mad at me for changing my mind often because I wasn't separating the company from me. I really did still think of it as like a personal project that also just needed some employees to help me with it. But it would make them so frustrated and so mad. They'd say, "You're always changing your mind." And I'd say, well, yeah, That's, I'm not a baby. Okay, that's how we learn. We change our minds. But it was really frustrating for them. It made me hard to work for because I was changing my mind so often. So in hindsight, it probably would have been better if I led the company straight ahead on a unchanging path and kept my personal growth to myself, or channeled it into other projects that were not this one that people were depending on.
I think that's a good point, and at the same time, because I see that the way you tackle on projects, right? You write a book and do like for 12 to 15 hours a day. And then you start programming your website and your web shop to sell books, and you do that for like 15 hours a day. That's the same thing you did in CDBaby, your company, where you did a lot of programming to to shop better, to do the processing better, and have all this stuff like getting everything into iTunes. You're when I read this, of course, I'm not next to you, but when I read this, you go head into things and dive full in. So it feels like it's very difficult to separate these worlds if you head into full into your business. I think it's a great promise, but I also think it's a very difficult one to do.
Yeah. Some people have that ability. Maybe it's interesting to me because it would be so hard for me. It's so against my nature to do that, to take something like a project or a company and only be what it needs me to be, instead of being who I just feel like being. Maybe I think that's why I tend to dive into things so deeply now, especially. It's because I'm just doing what I feel like doing. I'm not doing it for others. I'm just doing it for myself. So I could just follow my own interests, and I can do something. God, 2 years ago, I decided to do my first mobile app. There was an idea that I thought would be really interesting. And for a month or two, it's all I did. And I got 90% done. And then that last 10% just didn't interest me so much. So I stopped doing it because I hadn't told anybody about it. Nobody was depending on it. And I thought, all right, well, that was fun. And I just walked away and did something else. And that was so wonderful that nobody minded because nobody was depending on it. But yeah, it feels like it would be the right thing to do if you had people working for you and depending on you to just lead them straight on the path without changing your mind and stopping and starting.
Yeah, the good thing for me is I do this on my own, so I have nobody working for me except correct my writings or add a photo to a post or whatever. So that's all minor things that really doesn't interfere with me meandering about. But apparently, it's still a topic that I think about a lot right now. What does Stoicism mean to you, and how does Stoicism make your life better? That's a good question.
Sure. So to be clear, I didn't know about Stoicism as a word until I was 42 years old. But it's been the way that I've been living since I was a teenager. I don't know how I picked it up or how I adopted this philosophy, but I think it's because I wanted very, very, very badly to be a successful musician. And I knew that that was going to be difficult. Being a rock star is something that a million people may want, and only 1 in a million is going to get. And I wanted to be that 1 in a million. So I felt that I'm going to have to prepare for a difficult future. I'm going to have to over-prepare for this difficult task. So at every step of the way, I would be intentionally hard on myself. I would challenge myself in ways kind of like practicing, where Or you think of a weightlifter. If somebody wants to be good at jumping high, then maybe you strap a bunch of weights onto your legs and you practice jumping even just, a few centimeters, and you keep working on it, and then you're up to a 20-centimeter jump, and wow, eventually you get up to a 60-centimeter jump with weights on you, and then you take the weights off, and whew, wow. So I was doing versions of that in my life at all times. I was constantly and intentionally making my life harder as a form of practice for life. And that involves expecting the worst, planning for the worst, never planning for the best, because the best doesn't need any planning. So I was doing this for 20 years. And then at the urging of a friend or two, I read this book on Stoicism, and I went, whoa, oh my God, this is, wow, somebody thought of this stuff 2,000 years ago. I thought it was just me. I thought I was the weirdo that was always assuming the worst. And so what it means to me is, in short, if I had to sum up Stoicism in one sentence, I'd call it preparing yourself for a more difficult future. Assuming that the future is going to be harder than it is now, and preparing yourself accordingly. Being stronger than you need to be. Getting used to, say, accommodations or a lifestyle that is harder than you have it now. So you may have $100,000 in the bank, but live as if you only had $1,000 in the bank. Don't use your savings because you're going to need it for that more difficult future. Things like that. So it's how it's improved my life. I feel stronger because of it. I feel prepared that if things go horribly wrong, and which is, hard to imagine now in 2020. How could anything go wrong? But if things go horribly wrong, it's nice to feel that I'm mentally prepared for that, that I've been imagining that in my head at all times. And the most memorable idea in this book about Stoicism, because it's so vivid and horrible, is they said, a true Stoic, when kissing your child goodnight, must always imagine that your child will not be alive in the morning. And you think, oh God, you sick fucker. Who says that? And you think, all right, okay, that's vivid and extreme, but that's a great example, is to just expect the worst at all times. And it's funny that it sounds a little crazy, but when I'm walking in nature, I'm often looking around thinking, this might all be gone soon. Some horrible tree disease or some horrible bomb is going to be dropped somewhere, and all of these gorgeous trees are going to be burnt stumps, and all of this nature's going to be gone. Oh, this blue ocean is going to be brown. This is all going to be gone. And because of that, I'm so thankful this is here today. It makes me so thankful. And lastly, I find it, I don't know if you call this Stoicism, but just in general, assuming the worst can be a really fun, creative thought exercise. Like right now or a month ago, I asked myself, what happens if I could never travel ever again? Meaning if none of us could travel ever again.
Like it's very on topic today with the,
right.
with the COVID situation.
Yeah. And so how could, I used to think, or I have until this moment, thought that travel is so important and so crucial. What if we just can't? How would I adapt? And so thinking through that, and then maybe even if travel is possible, maybe something I went through in that thought process will help me change my behavior and assume as if travel is not possible. And if travel is possible, well, then that's just a nice bonus. But I've set myself up in such a way so that travel's not necessary for what I want out of life. End of monologue. Sorry, you got me on one of my favorite subjects, so I would just rant about.
That's why I'm asking this question, because I want to learn, right? So I want to learn, because for me, I don't look at always expect the worst. For me, it's more about um, not controlling, but being aware of how you respond to things, how you react to things. So something is happening to you, or something is going on. You can be very upset, but once I figure out this is something I can't or want to do anything about it to change it, there's not really something that I should worry about or think about or whatever. Be busy with my thoughts about it, because if I'm going to be busy with my thoughts about it, and I can't or won't change anything about it, it was a waste of time. So for me, it is more like, okay, so the government is now doing something about the whole coronavirus situation, and they have ideas and discussions about what the next action is going to be. There's not really a lot that I can do about that. I could form a protest action or whatever, but I don't want to do that. I have other things that I think are more fun to do than that. So for me right now, when they announce stuff, I just go like, okay, this is the new situation, and I have to deal with that. And I don't go into a mode of, okay, so this is a stupid situation. I don't want to do that, and now I'm just going to be worried about it. So I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what to do tomorrow. I go, so this is a new situation, and I went away to work with it, and I don't think about it anymore because there are other things that are more important to me. So for me, it's more that way. So that not just think about the worst could happen tomorrow, so that I'm really grateful for today. It's more like, okay, so what can I do with my thoughts that's really going to help me, that's going to contribute to the actions that I really want to do.
Right. Yeah. Because in the end, the actions are what matter, right? If we're just thinking things, well, then that's just like watching movies in your brain. But the actions, for some reason, while you were talking, I was thinking of the stock market comparison, that people who think that the stock market is only going to go up, 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 are not well prepared if they were assuming it was always going to go up and their stock market portfolio was held accordingly. But on the other hand, somebody who's expecting in advance that the stock market might go way up and it might completely crash, might go way down and stay down for years at a time, then they would take different investing actions because of that expectation. So with that as just a metaphor, then I think of that with the things that we're doing in life or with our business or whatever, that if you're expecting that, okay, things are going really well right now, but they might completely crash and stay bad for a long time. I might have no clients for 9 months. If that happens, what would I do? Or I might get completely drowned in orders. The president tomorrow might declare my product to be essential, and we quickly need 6 million of them. How can I be prepared for either of those two scenarios? If you're thinking of these things in advance and then you take actions accordingly, so that whether you get 6 million orders tomorrow or no orders for 6 months, if you can actually be prepared for both of those scenarios, yeah, then you really can let go of whatever happens, because it wasn't just a little emotional exercise. You know that you've also taken the actions so that you're okay no matter what happens.
Yeah, good point. That. Let's see. I have so many topics, but the time is limited. I don't want to be I don't want to have all these topics that here and talk about. So let's see what can. But yeah, I think this one is really that keeps me going.
Wait, before you continue, I want to say I really appreciate the pace of this conversation. Some people, because they're on the podcast, they feel a need to act like a radio DJ. where every single minute is filled with theater. Hey, everybody, hey guys, let's fill it with theater. So, Derek Sivers, tell us, what do you do? Yeah. And they feel the need to fill every single space because radio cannot have any silence. So I really appreciate your silences. It's really nice.
Thank you. And I think silence is important. So you should just make
those of you listening and not watching the video, I was just nodding my head in the video. Going like, yeah, how could I say something?
Yeah, I know. This topic is letting go of goals. It's dear to my heart, and it is. I think a lot of topics that I have is like it's an argument inside me, listening to some people, then listening to other people, and then arguing inside that of my head. What I want to listen to you in a bit, but I want to explain. No, forget that. I want to hear your story first.
I want to hear your thoughts. This is because letting go of goals is a very new subject for me. I haven't thought about a lot. I'd like to hear you.
Okay. I was in a mastermind for like 10 years or so. 8 years, with a group of entrepreneurs, 4 and people in the end with 3. And every quarter we would come together and we would discuss the topics in our business, and we would ask each other tough questions about the new ideas that you have for the coming quarter or for the next half year or so. And what always happened is that we would have these great visions for the future, right? So many new clients, so many things we're going to do in marketing and this and that. And I would always be optimistic. I still am. I am always very optimistic about things. So I have these really great ideas that are going to be really big. And when I start a online network, it's going to be like 1,000 people on there because 1,000 true fans, and then each pays $100, and I have a great list, and so on. So I have 10 new clients, and it will be enormous. It will be really great, and next time it will be 20. And every time my predictions wouldn't come true. It will be I had a goal of 100, and there were like 40 would show up, and I wasn't happy with the 40 because my goal was 100. So every time I came back with the new numbers and of last quarter, I was kind of with a stone in my stomach, sharing my numbers because they were not as what I promised it was going to be, my thoughts. So, and the thing was, I was unhappy, right? You share your numbers, you're very optimistic, but then you need to share also what happened, and it was not really what you thought it was going to be. So I was unhappy. Then I thought, so why not just let go of those goals? Why not just forget about everything about those goals? Because it's just a artificial number that's I made up. It's no theory or something. It's just something I made up someday that's just going to happen. And so if it was my imagination, I can also imagine something else. So why not forget about the whole of goals and just do the best work I can do with the people I'm working with now, and hopefully they will share that with somebody else, and that will bring in a new client or a new project or whatever. So that's the way I tackled of letting go of goals in the last 2.5 years or so. And why is it still a battle? Because when you shoot for the stars and end up with something, that's similar things, right? You have these really broad visions, and even if you go halfway, you still have great goals or results. Right. And so that's the discussion inside me. If I have really great goals, and if I end up somewhere halfway, it still is going to be a great goal. But then I go like, oh, so then I have to do every day. I have to do this stuff again to get to my goals. Why do I do that? Why can't I just be happy with the things I'm doing? So that's me and letting go of goals, trying to let go of goals. How about you?
I'm so glad I asked, because I had never thought about numbers goals in a project that you're still committed to. I had only thought in terms of like letting go of conflicting projects entirely. So shutting down plans. Yeah, my thought on it so far could have been called letting go of plans. My specific examples in my life were that I had always planned to start making music again. I had planned to learn Chinese. I had planned to make this mobile app. I had planned to do this. And all of these things still existed in my head as things I am doing. Well, I need to finish this thing right now, but I'm still going to do those other 6 things I just said. And I've realized one day that if I were to give up on the idea of making music and actually give away all of my musical instruments to a friend of mine who's a full-time professional musician, wow, that would feel so liberating. And so I did it. I gave away my instruments. So now I have no musical instruments in the house. And I've found, weirdly enough, that it makes me happier, because my psyche, my soul is not torn every day thinking I should be spending more time doing that thing. So that was my main example of letting go of goals. But then I thought of the other ones, like, well, what if I just said to myself, even privately, like, I'm never going to learn Chinese. It's not going to happen. Then, it was kind of a relief. Like, would my life still be okay? Kind of like I said, what if you could never travel again? What if I never learned Chinese? Would my life still be okay? It's like, yeah, I'd actually still be cool with that if I never learned Chinese. All right, well, then I'm just going to completely let go of that. I'm going to take that off the list of things that I'm going to do. And that was a huge relief. But I had never thought of this idea that you brought up of saying, for this project I'm doing, I'm expecting 100 people to sign up. And oh no, only 40 people signed up. I'm so sad. How would that look if instead, which is, I'm going to do this thing and I have no idea whether 1 million people or 2 people or no people are going to sign up. And I'm just going to do it anyway. How would that look? Like letting go of expectations? Is this kind of what you mean? Like letting go of expectations for a project you're doing? Huh. How would that change your actions? Would that improve things if you let go of expectations? Would it change your actions at all?
Well, yes, it does, because when I take this example of this online environment that I created. It was an idea from Sean D'Souza, also from New Zealand, and not also from New Zealand. He lives in New Zealand. That's why.
Sorry, who is that?
Sean D'Souza. He's a copywriter.
Oh, okay, cool.
And he always talks about long walks, taking long walks, and the sheep and everything. So also, it reminded, when you talk about this long walks, you remind me of him. And he talked about this online environment that he has, and I've been a member of that, and also other people that have been members of these. I can do this. I can start an online space where people can just come in, and it's like a forum, and I have these topics that I append there, and they can learn and read and share and ask questions, and I can answer them in there. And so they have like 400 or 600 people in there. So if I have 100, that will be just great. So really, there were 40 in the end, and I shut down after, I think, a year and a half or something, because 40 was not the 100. And the same thing happened with the number of clients that I want for my business. And what happens is, if I do that, I'm spending a lot of my time thinking about things that I could do in marketing, in sales, to get to that number. And that part of getting to more is conflicting with the time that I could spend with the actual customers that I have. So I would be worrying more about the 60 people that I don't have. Instead of, I could be spending just a crazy amount of time with the 4 people that were in there and try to get them to discuss more and talk more. So it made it better to let go of those numbers, so I could go not all in, but at least like 80% in on the clients that are there right now. And
it's such a great example.
Even despite that, because right now, just because of the whole Corona situation, a lot of clients stop working with me right now. As a business coach, I can understand why. So, but I've been working very hard with the remaining customers that were there, because I would just want to help them through this phase. And once this is over, they would be in a new level, and we all would be happy. So I spend a lot more time with clients than I should. Than they paid for. But then one still left. I was really disappointed. But I can understand why. So it's not always the thing, even if you spend all of your time with the clients and giving the best value. If you are not clear, transparent about the things that you do for them. That was a new thought I had this weekend.
Wow. That is such a great example. Thank you for telling that. Seth Godin is talking a lot lately about a concept he calls, I think, the minimum viable audience.
Mm-hmm.
Where he says, for any new thing you start, determine what is the minimum viable audience that will make this worth doing. It will enable you to keep going. And that's, the story you told just reminded me of that. Like, could I do this service if I had only 10 clients? Yes, I would like 100. Yes, I would like maybe 500. Could I do it if I had only 10? Would that be sustainable? And if so, then yeah, maybe until you get 10, you do have to focus on getting to that minimum number. But after you have the minimum number, yeah, you're right. You could just focus entirely on your existing people and not even try so hard to grow it so much, because you've already reached your minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the story of Seth, because I've read the book, This is Marketing. That concept is explained in the book a lot. And I listened to a podcast interview with him about that. And he mentioned this example of a restaurant owner. He says, as a restaurant owner, you can be busy with getting people in the line for the restaurant and inviting them to the restaurant and everything. Or you could care about the people at table 7 and make for them the best night, the best experience in this restaurant, so that they will come back and bring new friends. And I like the idea so much. I think this is what it's all about. It's not about getting more. It's about making for these people the best experience that they can have.
Yeah. You know what makes me think of that a lot is when I hear entrepreneurs talking about a business they want to make or have just started, and they always refer to people in terms of a crowd. That they only refer to them in terms of quantity. We need to get 10,000 users in. We've got this many clicks. We've got this many eyeballs. And whenever they talk like that too much, I think, these are people, right? Just individuals that you can speak to and talk to and ask why they're using your service. You need to always remember that these are individuals that are spending their time with you. It's if you're thinking of them in terms of a crowd too much. I like actually thinking that there is no such thing as a crowd. Like, there's actually no such thing. There's just people, individuals. And,
I have a lot of things about that to say, because I wrote a book about hyper specialization, and that's all about it. I don't talk about a target audience. I talk about a target client, the one and only client that you want to work for, that has one issue, and you have one solution to solve that issue. It makes it so much easier. But okay, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
A book. Actually, I'm looking forward to 2 books of you, right? But the Hell Yeah book is the idea, that concept idea has been on my mind a lot since I heard about it from you. But I listened to an explanation of you about how somebody said, I'm going to use that all the time. And you said, no, that's not the whole point of hell yeah. Can you make me explain that part?
Sure. So the hell yeah or no idea is about raising the bar all the way to the top for what you will say yes to. It's when you're feeling overcommitted, you've said yes to too many things, and you're feeling stretched too thin. You've got too many opportunities coming your way. Then you're at risk of drowning. So you need to raise the bar all the way to the top and say yes to almost nothing. Say no to basically everything. And then only when that rare occasional thing comes by that's so amazing that you can't say no to it, that this is something that would really be amazing and exciting for you to do, then you say yes to that one thing. And the big idea is that because you've said no to everything else, now you have the time and the energy and the power to throw yourself completely into that one thing and really kick ass at it instead of kind of half-assing a lot of things. So that's the big idea. The problem is that it got shared on a Tim Ferriss podcast that went out to a massive audience. So I did start to get emails from 21-year-olds straight out of college going, hey man, hell yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm going to apply this to my life. I'm not going to say yes to any job unless I'm feeling hell yeah about it, man. And I think, wait, no, hold on. This is, I know it's a cliche to say this, but it's like, you don't get a hammer and just try to start using a hammer for everything, including cooking and fixing a light bulb. It's meant for smashing things. So hell yeah or no is a tool for when you're overwhelmed with options and lots of things are coming your way and you're at risk of drowning. Then you need to say no to almost all of them so you have the time to say yes to the occasional one. But earlier in your career, for example, or when you just have nothing going on, it may be the best strategy to say yes to everything and do absolutely everything. Sleep a little less, meet everybody, try it all, do everything, even try lots of different career paths. Maybe you're not really sure what career path you want to go down. And so you do some of this and some of that and a little bit of that. Maybe you hold down 3 jobs at one time and have 2 other projects on the side. And then when one of those things starts to reward you exceptionally well, whether that means giving you lots of money or giving you amazing feedback, or you just take exceptional joy in that one thing, then you can start to say no to the others and throw yourself into this one thing. But yeah, often I think that we need different strategies for different times. Speaking of one of my favorite leadership books of all time is by Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And the big idea is you used a certain set of techniques to get you from the beginning to where you are now. And it's kind of written to successful executives. It assumes that you're already at a medium level of success. He says, now to get to the next level where you want to be, it's not going to be the same set of techniques and tools you used to get here. So what got you here won't get you there. You need to take a different strategy to get you further. So I see hell yeah or no as a kind of second level strategy. It's something you need to start using after you're already successful.
After you're already successful. And that successful means you're slumped, you have so much work coming at you that you need decisions.
Yeah, I mean, successful can mean whatever it means to you.
Yeah.
The reason Tim Ferriss liked the idea so much is because he's overwhelmed in people sending him stuff. And at the time, he was living in San Francisco and also being a startup angel investor. And so he was drowned with people sending business ideas his way. Like, hey man, we're doing this, company's doing this, we're looking for investors. And he said that very often he would hear these business pitches and think, that's a really good idea. Maybe I should invest in that because that's a really good idea. So he liked my hell yeah or no thing because it helped him raise the bar higher for who he would invest in, right? So he just he'll hear 200 business pitches and he just says no to all of them. But wait, oh my God, yes, that one. Now that I've said no to 199 others, yes, this one I'm going to invest in. And in fact, I'll invest more because I said no to 199 others. So that's why he found it useful and was so happy to share it. But yeah, for those of us that are not overwhelmed, it's
to say yes to
everything. It's funny because I say successful, but you could actually be successful and not be overwhelmed. Like I feel like that's where I'm at right now. Is I've been doing this for so long, I've just by default said no to so many things for so long that I'm not drowning. So I don't need to use my own hell yeah or no technique at this stage in my life because there aren't a lot of things coming my way, and I mean that in a good way.
I understand. So
I'm not interested in.
Yeah, but when you want to learn more about Derek Sivers as a listener, there's a whole story of how he got here where he is today, and there's a lot of experiments and a lot of things he said yes to in the beginning that came in his direction. That's a great story.
Yeah, thanks for actually. It's funny. I don't think of my past that much, but you're right. Since we're on this subject, that a lot of the best things that ever happened to me were because of some random little thing that I said yes to that everybody else said no to. That I was a ringleader of a circus for 10 years. It was an amazing gig and an amazing experience. And it's all because the musicians around me said no to playing guitar at a pig show in Vermont for $75. It was for an all-day long gig. The musicians around me thought it wasn't worth doing. I'm the one weirdo that said yes to it. And because I said yes to that one thing, it led to so many other things. And that happened over and over again in different aspects of my life. I was the only one that said yes. And that's why I got the big opportunities. Thanks for that reminder.
I like that so much. It was such a, I think that whole concept of just saying yes to opportunities is somehow lost today to, like you just mentioned, people of 21. I see it with my own, right? So it's very difficult for them to accept a job that they don't know if it's the right one, and they just want to accept the right job. But my gosh, you're just 20 or 23. Come on, just with it and see what happened. After a year, there will be another world for you. A lot of things will change. Your idea have changed about this job and all the things that you do. So let go of the idea of an ideal job when you're in your 20s. I'm 52 now, and I'm sometimes wondering why it took me so long to find the thing that I really love doing. And not just that, I think it's also that people love me doing, right? So that when I go to clients, they are happy that I come, and they are happy when I go away again because they've learned some stuff, or they made new decisions, or they changed some ideas that they had before, and they go like, yeah, this might be a good way to look at it as well, not just my vision. And so when they are happy, I'm happy, and that's a feeling that I've been missing for so long. And I go like, why did it take so long? Because you have to experience all the other stuff that's going on to get all these ideas and to find your way and to accept where things are going. So I like that story from you a lot. Is there anything that you want to say, Derek? Now, in ending this.
No, this has been a really fun, unique conversation. And again, I really appreciate the pace and the silence. And it felt like more of a real conversation instead of a radio interview. So
I'm not a radio guy. It's me. It's all about trying to learn from you where and how do you make decisions. And I understand, obviously, these are decisions for you based upon your experiences and your life. But then again, maybe I can do something with it. Maybe I can, learn something and use a nugget from it and see how it fits into my puzzle.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. So,
yeah.
Thank you very much. If people want to find you, what's the best way to get to you?
Only one way. Just go to sivers.org, SIVERS.org. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I actually really like hearing from people. And in fact, I really like Dutch people. A lot of my good friends are Dutch. And every time I went there, it always felt like, God, I wish I could live here. This is I just like the culture of the place. And I like the Dutch people I've met. So any Dutchies, send me an email. I like you.
And I would say just get into his private email list, as he calls it, on his website. You'll learn about his latest posts, his latest podcasts, his latest ideas. Probably you will learn about his new books that are coming out someday. And because they've been waiting for like 2018 or something. That's okay.
Sorry,
I can wait. That's okay. I just your book 3 times. That's okay. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thanks, Erno.